Oh shit, you know what that means, everybody. It's time for an episode of BGE Investigates on this week's WIAGW!
Nanomachine, son!
Welcome, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, to another episode of Why I'm a Genius Weekly, and let's jump right into it. So the new Pokemon game, Sword and Shield, is finally out, and there's been some upsides, some downsides. Some people love it, some people hate it, lots to say. Personally, I beat the game already, including all the post-game content, and it took me about 38 hours, and I had a pretty great time. For a full rundown of my experience, you can go listen to me and Digibro's video on it on our content channel over here. But what we're going to be talking about today is a very specific facet of this game, and that was the controversy surrounding it prior to and during its release, which has many tendrils, but for the most part swirls around this issue of Dexit, the cold, hard reality that Game Freak, Pokemon's developer, is going to be cutting over 400 Pokemon from the roster. You won't be able to get into the game. Jesus Christ. Now let me just say, on the face of it, this is by far the worst thing about the game, in my opinion. It bodes very badly for the future of the series and makes me terrified that we'll never get the kind of cohesive Pokemon game we've had in the past. But maybe there'll be updates that fix it later, maybe in like the Sword plus Shield plus Black and White 2 kind of versions of the games, they'll fix this. I don't know, we'll have to see. But right now, the games we've got feel tragically incomplete. My beloved Scissor is cut from the game. Wartortle's not there. Based Flygon is still here, but how many times am I gonna see my beloved people Thanos snapped away like this? It can't keep happening! They can't keep getting away with this! So this situation got a lot of people sad and a lot of people mad, as you would expect. The beloved Pokemon can't get into the game. There's some talk about how Pokemon Home, this online service, can be like a holding place for your Pokemon to be transferred to, that they'll be able to be used in future games, hopefully, but most people aren't feeling very satisfied with that right now. And of course, the reason why people are so mad about this Dexit cut of so many Pokemon is because the reasoning that Game Freak gave us as to why this had to be done was because they felt that they just didn't have the resources as a developer to do all the kind of upgrades they wanted to the game and continue to inch up more and more Pokemon every game and keep that model sustainable indefinitely. They decided this was the day they were going to make their stand, say, sorry guys, we can't handle adding all these Pokemon in. This is something that I kind of suspected would eventually come, but hoped never would. Here we are though, baby. Now that's really only the tip of the iceberg, because the tendrils of this situation go wildly out of control and started a big campaign called #GameFreakLied, based on some data points that let's touch on briefly. You see, these points that I've raised so far have been Game Freak's side of the story as it's been reported and discussed online, but the people, now that the game's out, have another story. So let's quickly run down the timeline of what led us to the situation where so many people are mad that they started this hashtag. Here we go. First things first, the Dexit cuts are announced. People are pissed off. There's some amount of people who are willing to accept this because, as Game Freak is saying, this is so that they can spend the development time working on other things, increasing the visual fidelity of the game, working on new animations, investing in the Dynamax battle systems and whatnot, and so on. Event number 2, rumors start to spread around that Game Freak have cut corners on many aspects of development, and that being the case, these Dexit cuts are not justified. This includes such topics as cutting Megaforms completely, the Dynamax/Gigantamax mechanics appearing underwhelming, technical issues like low render distance resulting in ugly pop-ins, outright reused animations, as you can clearly see with How and Hop, generally low quality animations like we saw with this cutscene with the final big legendary dogs. All these factors filtering back into the fact that Game Freak really hasn't impressed too much on the technical front here, and of course this idea that all the models in the new game are just ripped from the old games and reused, so what effort would there be in translating it into the new games? All these factors go into pointing to why was Dexit necessary? Explain it to us, Game Freak. It was at this time a new article on Polygon came out, reporting on a fan translation of a recent Famitsu interview with the game's director Omori and producer Masuda, in which they had this to say. We're debunking this claim that the models have been ported over from the 3DS. We are in fact rebuilding them from scratch. You will get all new models in the game, and this is one of the many reasons why we are not porting over every old Pokemon. Reused models? Oh no, let's dispel that rumor right now. Only new ones, baby. And now, the last piece on our timeline, people come forward with evidence appearing to conclusively prove that the models in Sword and Shield are in fact identical to the models used in Sun and Moon, thus proving that the statement that Masuda and Omori made were lies. Therefore, Dexit was not justified, their claims were false, hence hashtag Game Freak lied. This is the story as it is presented, and with the facts as we just described them, it makes perfect sense. However, you may have noticed there's a little bit of a suspicious piece in there. It's that Polygon's article was reporting on a fan translation of a Japanese original article. And the statements made in that article are crucial to proving that there was lying going on here. Now, as someone who trusts no one and must verify first-party sources myself, I went and did my own investigation and my own fresh translation of the relevant pieces of this article. So let's take a look at that, shall we? There was a long sentence here by Omori, but let me read the rough translation I've got to you. Even at the time of Pocket Monster Sun and Moon, it was actually a tough situation to be able to bring all the Pokemon. But as the hardware became the Nintendo Switch, the models were rebuilt from the beginning, and I had to make some hard choices. Now, the most salient section of this sentence is this. ハードが Nintendo Switch になってモデルを最初から作り直すことになり. That being the part saying that as the hardware became the Nintendo Switch, we recreated the models from the start. Now, I happen to know a little Japanese myself, my dudes, and the most important word as part of this discussion is the word saisho, which means first or beginning. The translation that's been going around for this has been saying creating the models from scratch. I'm not 100% convinced that that was Omori's intent when he used that word. And this is important because this is where the entire lie idea is coming from, whether or not the intention here was to say that the models were being recreated completely out of whole cloth or not. Looking at all the articles that reported on this issue, it is my opinion that Polygon, as the originator here, and the other people who cited them and reported from them, did not do their due diligence attempting to translate this, and in fact, overstated the case. I feel that Polygon went too far when they stated that Game Freak was claiming that no 3D models were being used in any capacity here, that claim was totally debunked. Looking back at the original text, the passage that they are citing does not mention anything about the 3DS or old models specifically. It simply states that they are recreating the models from the beginning. And what does that mean exactly? I see a number of ways this could be interpreted that are not a particular lie. As we saw, in the full context of the sentence, Omori is saying, since we are now porting a Pokemon game onto the Switch, hardware is changing, things are being updated, and the models had to be recreated for usage on this console. Now, I have no experience with the Switch dev kit or what kind of code or anything like that it uses, but I wouldn't be particularly surprised if hardware or software constraints force them to in some way modify the models that they had prepared in the olden days that were used on the 3DS games. Even if it's perhaps something as simple as changing the file types of these models for usage in the game, I don't know, that's possible. In any case, it seems to me more likely to be a technical issue than an artistic one. Of course, now we have the benefit of hindsight, and part of my impression here is because it really looks like the models are in fact the same. And that justification seems like a reasonable one with the information we have now. Or how about this? Another alternative is that perhaps this idea of recreating the models was referring to Dynamaxing, which is a new feature in the game that every single Pokemon can do. It is stated elsewhere in the article that Dynamaxing has given new kind of graphical concerns that have to be adapted for and prepared for in the new game. So in some way that might have been part of what they were saying. We know that animations and new effects appear on every Pokemon when they Dynamax, so perhaps that's part of the story here. It doesn't appear that new models were made for any of the Pokemon except the ones that, have their actual alternate forms. But that is not the case with most Pokemon, so I don't think that new models were made just for that purpose. And of course, perhaps when using the word model, as Omori did in that article, he actually meant kind of the larger features that are attached to a model. For example, new textures or graphical design in general for Pokemon. Because while it's true that the Pokemon models appear to be identical in the comparisons that we've seen so far, other aspects have been tweaked relating to the visual style of the game. Perhaps that's part of what he meant? Or even the animations themselves, like that the Pokemon have during the campsite stuff, or sometimes in battle. Now, I do agree that if any of these are what Omori meant, we are getting farther and farther of the actual definition of the word model. So we shouldn't allow these things to get too far away from us. So all this is to say, when it comes to the phrase recreating the models from the start, that seems like a fairly open-ended phrase. What exactly did he mean by the start? Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely see why people could come to the conclusion that they're talking about completely remaking from scratch all the Pokemon models. And I do not begrudge anybody who feels misled by Omori's words here. That seems totally reasonable. These guys are the fucking director and producer of the game, ancient veterans with the Pokemon series, and they're acting as spokesmen for the series here. It is understandable that people kind of take their word as gospel, and it could be misinterpreted wrongly if they don't mean it that way. Or it's also possible they lied. But it's notable that they've in no way clarified this issue since then, even though there was a update statement, which honestly did absolutely nothing to help the situation, other than say that maybe more Pokemon will be in other games later. Great. I just think that with a modicum of charity, there are good faith interpretations of this one sentence that's been translated between languages that don't paint these guys as liars. Because this is the one thing that is the lie issue. Yes, there are plenty of other issues about Game Freak saying that they were going to make various improvements, or people expected the game to be better in various ways than it turned out to be. But all of that seems to tie into this Dexit issue, as the justifications for that seem to fall through if they've cut corners on something like this. And this is the one actual lie that people are putting forth. The fact that it is interpreted that they said they were using all new models, but they very clearly are not. Not specifically the technical idea of the Pokemon wireframe model itself. So in summary, I understand many people's disappointment with this game, but it raises one central question around much of the issues. Is it relevant that Game Freak is a small company? So it's not definitive, but technical issues with porting over the models really could have been what they meant by remaking them, not the artistic re-rendering that outlets like Polygon assumed that they meant by that. Now, it definitely seems foolish and stupid that this would be the case, considering the models were supposed to be future-proof as of many years ago, but perhaps Game Freak finally hit this technical wall with the Switch. To me, that seems to be what Omori was saying there. Now, Game Freak has like 150 employees, right? And at the time of development of Swish, half of them or so were working on town. So let's estimate we've got about 75 people working on this game. Now, that's not nothing. That's a whole bunch of people. It seems big, but there's a lot of game to make here with Pokemon Sword and Shield. So we can want Game Freak to be a bigger company and to get more people to help shoulder the load, as that seems to be the main problem that they're having here. It's kind of a numbers issue that they don't have enough people to fill out all the Pokemon that we would ideally want to be in Sword and Shield. Things like the unimpressive graphics and the recycled animation and whatnot, yes, these things speak of general laziness in the development and not putting in as much love as we would like to see in an original project here. But a lot of it does seem consistent with the idea that the studio is overburdened. Now, of course, you can find it foolish that they haven't hired more people, that they don't simplify the process, that they would put half of their fucking staff to work on town. But a lot of these things make sense within the company's perspective, with maybe a little bit of Pokemon fatigue going on with Game Freak. They've been making it for a long time. They feel some desire to do other things, it seems. So you can call them stupid, foolish, retarded, but liars. Liars is another matter, and that demands distinct proof. Because even though the Pokemon Company and the Pokemon series is like the most successful video game franchise of all time, all these billions of dollars, that is split among 3 companies that own the Pokemon Company, only one of which is Game Freak, and that trickles down, and they only have so much money that goes to staffing concerns. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that's a lot of money that could be used, but ultimately, this isn't a financial issue, it's a manpower and people issue. We're talking about the people that have to be on the ground to make the game, and could they really get
more capable people to work on the game at such rapid pace to get the game out on time? I don't know, but it seems more complicated than simply throw money at it. You need people with artistic ability to work on these things, and maybe there was some issue finding them. I don't know. I agree, I wish they had added more people. That would have been ideal to solve my biggest problems too, but it doesn't seem to have happened. I wonder why that is. And another concern people may have, why not just wait to get this game out? You know, why not just take your time? As Shigeru Miyamoto once famously said, a game that comes out fast but imperfect is bad forever, but if you take a while fucking longer and finish it when it's done, you got a good game for life, or something like that. That is a valuable ethos that we should probably follow as much as possible. And I agree on many of the technical, visual, story, world design elements of this game, absolutely. But that issue does not really relate to the Dexit one as much, because the Dexit issue really is this issue of a continually building mountain every single game, with more and more Pokemon being added in, more technical issues to be accounted for, you know, more specific things with weird Pokemon in it every once in a while. To account for every single Pokemon every single game is a continually growing burden on a company that already feels overburdened. Now, if they took longer time to development, could this have resolved this issue? Yes, it could have, to a degree. And that's why I think that maybe with like the remakes or some DLC, or not the remakes, the extended games, maybe the remakes too, they will fix this issue and they will put all the Pokemon in. But this felt like an inevitability from a long time ago, just considering how many fucking Pokemon there are. So it's complicated, it's hard to say. Things are not ideal, but we should have some understanding for why they might make this choice. And all that is to say that there are reasonable reasons why they might make some of these decisions, and why this might not be outright proof of lying. They clearly didn't want to cut these Pokemon, and it's true, I don't understand some of the choices as to which Pokemon they kept. I mean, they cut Scizor, and they kept fucking Goldeen. Why would you keep Goldeen? I fucking hate Goldeen! But why go straight to attributing malice to Game Freak when there are readings here that just belie stupidity, lack of planning, or even misunderstanding? To prove they lied, I need something a bit more concrete.
And I am no bootlicker for these guys, do not get me wrong. No one was more upset at the reveal of Dexit than I was. And as I said at the beginning, that is my number one, hugest, gargantuan complaint about the game to begin with. But if we're specifically talking about this issue of a lie about reusing models, we have to determine the intent and the specific words used. And I feel that there is room to question whether this was an actual lie or not. This is a line from Omori in an interview with Famitsu. He may have misspoken, he may have been unclear, and he may have led people astray. Those things are all fair. And if you feel that regardless of intent, simply having the position as spokesman for the series that he has, that regardless of what he intended to do, it led people astray and you're mad on that basis, I've got no argument against that. And don't get me wrong, I am not declaring these guys innocent. What I'm saying is, with the information we have right now, I feel it's inconclusive whether they definitively lied or not, based on the text. Maybe you find that unsatisfying, but I think it is the most good faith interpretation of what we've seen so far. If you have any suggestions as to where I might be going off on my basis, or if you have a better translation of the article than what I provided so far, give them to me and I'll be happy to take a look. I'm sure that not everybody is going to agree with me on these points, so I will be happy to check out what you guys have to say. Anyway, let's wrap that up right there and get to the packages. Transitioning the show. Oh, what it do, ladies and gents. Hey, you want to send me stuff to open on WIAGW episodes like this one? Send it to the address listed down below. Would love some letters, would love fun packages if you want to send. Whatever, man, let's just have fun with it. And let's get to it. All right, first up, we appear to have a package from Michael B. Let's see what we got. Okay, what have we in here? Okay, looks like we've got a letter here. It says, "Dear Mr. Bestman, you need a better webcam for content. Rather than merely complaining about the quality like some kind of pleb, I have taken the liberty of providing one, which I believe should suffice. Oh my god. I hope that this finds you in good health. You certainly are the best guy ever. Long-time viewer, first-time caller, Magpie." Holy shit. Let's just take a look at this real quick, shall we? You did not have to do this, dude. That is incredibly generous of you. This appears to be a Razer Kiyo. Huh. Ooh, it's got like a ring light around it and it looks pretty fucking dope. Well, shit, bro. I am gonna give this a try ASAP. Oh, hang on though. There's a message for somebody else. Dear Mr. Worst Man, I better pass this along to Worst Guy Ever. Eat a chode and good luck with your endeavors. Some internet asshole magpie. Haha, that'll show him. Oh, and AG, there's a message for you too, buddy. It says, Dear Mr. Giraffe, you are my favorite. Another secret admirer, magpie. What do you think about that, buddy?
I already have too much sex. Thanks anyway.
Ha ha ha! He's got AIDS. And what have we got here? We've got another lovely package from one Nexus Mania. Let's see what we got. Okay, what have we got? Garbage envelope for protection. Okay, open there. Will do. Fucking tricky ass Nexus. Do I scissor here? I'm not sure. Let's just cut a little piece off. I already regret doing that. All right, let's see here. Okay, I'm feeling more confident now. Here we go. Yeah! All right. Let's see what we have here. Oh, of course. It is Nexus Mania's beautiful original copy of the RadCon 3 Arena IRL battle art. As you can see here, it's the new funky mode, original RadCon 3 fan art for Nate by Nexus Mania. Boys only, don't fucking touch it, Michelle. Haha, well said. Well, I am gonna tuck this right back in its envelope and make sure that it's safe and sound and find a place for it appropriate. That's absolutely lovely, Nexus. Thank you for sending that. I'm happy to get it. And everybody should go check out Nexus's artwork and shit elsewhere, especially the video featuring me playing Pod in Rocketo Punch. It'll be in the description, probably. All right, enough of this nonsense. It's time to wrap up this shit, and hope you've had fun. I've had a good time, just doing my thing here on this episode of WIAGW!
Nanomachine, son!
If you like what I'm doing here on this show, why not support me on patreon.com/bestguyever, or if you fancy it, Subscribestar. Links for both are down in the description. You could also pay me on PayPal if you want to. Go nuts! Boy, you know you gotta check out the fresh channel me and Digibro are doing, Content, where again, we did a long-ass video discussing our thoughts on at least the beginning ideas of Pokemon Sword and Shield, so go click the description or the fucking card for that. Ugh, it was a good time. Go watch my weekly podcast on The Procrastinators and my weekly One Piece show, The Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at BestGuyEver. Watch my streams at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday nights. Twitch.tv/definitely bestguyever, baby. It's the only place to have a good time. And that's gonna do it, ladies and gents. I will see you next week with another hot and fresh WIAGW. Hey, what'd you think about that Konosuba video I did? Pretty well edited, don't you think? Pretty good stuff, pretty good. Send me your packages, message me on Twitter, do all kinds of things, watch the videos, send me #WIAGW noises. I'm dying for more, baby. And have yourself a good time. See you around, Pokeboys. Ah!